Are you considering buying a zero-turn mower? This might be a situation that you've only been in once in your life. Maybe it's been a handful of times. I've sold not 10 mowers, not 100 mowers. I've sold over 1,000 mowers, from used mowers to brand new. I have seen it all. And I've seen a lot of mistakes when purchasing a zero-turn mower. So without further ado, let's get into my top 5 mistakes when buying a zero-turn mower. Number 1, I see people buying only off of initial price and not considering total cost. So what do I mean by that? You might be having a budget of $4,000 looking at a mower like this, right? This Toro Time Cutter Max, we sell this mower for $36.99. If I go over to the other side of my parking lot, everything starts to get more expensive. This is a mower, this bad boy Rogue 72-inch that sells for $12,399. Let me just say, there are a lot of differences between a $4,000 zero turn and a $12,000 zero turn. Probably as I make some of the other points in this video, you'll be able to understand exactly what those differences are a little bit better. But point blank, if you are looking and you want to only spend that much money, or that's the only cash that you have set aside, there are financing options. Because if you sacrifice on some of the build quality components and you only get that $4,000 mower, and let's say you actually have 2, 3, 4, 5 acres, something where I really would recommend more mower than that first one I mentioned, there are financing options. And it seems like in this mower world, they want to talk about 0% financing. We put 2 prices on absolutely everything, because the reality is there is no such thing as 0% financing. Sometimes manufacturers will bite all of the bullet and actually cover those finance costs, but in many cases there are dealer costs associated with 0% financing. It's going to cost you a little bit more money to finance, but I think ultimately maybe you need a $7,000 or $8,000 mower and you're only looking at buying that $4,000 mower. I think if you do have to finance, the rest of that cost, I think long term, when you think of having to replace transmissions prematurely or an engine prematurely because you're simply pushing that mower too hard, it's actually going to cost you less long term if you are buying that $7,000 or $8,000 machine versus the $4,000 machine. And I don't want to be that mower salesman that just is talking you into spending twice as much money as what you came in for. You could consider used. If you look at this mower right here versus a used machine I have for $4,000, this is a class of mower that's a commercial class. This is equivalent to more of a $7,000 to $9,000 mower brand new. And I have used mowers that are under $2,000 that are comparable to this. I would rather see you go to a higher level machine, and you could be actually right in that same budget as what you were looking at over here. So understand, it's not point blank simple to just get that machine because that's all you have set aside. Consider used, consider finance options, or consider waiting until you can get the right machine for you. Mistake number 2, I think, is buying too small of a deck for your large acreage property. Now, you may be watching this because you have a half acre or an acre, and yes, I can totally understand buying a 42-inch, buying a 50-inch. Maybe you have 2 acres or under, but I see people that are getting beyond that type of acreage, and they're not buying a 60-inch deck. This is a good example of seeing those kind of 3 different classes of mowers: residential, high-end residential, and full-end commercial, all of them having 60-inch decks. I would highly recommend to get a 60-inch deck over a 48, 54, 50, somewhere in that class if you were looking at large acreage. It's the difference in you cutting your property half an hour to an hour faster, putting less strain on your mower overall because it's not running as long. And I see people talking to me thinking about this one particular part in their property where they can't fit their mower in between, and that's why they want to go to this. Number 1, you can do things like this. You can flip open your grass chute to get into tighter areas. But I also think people have that misconception that they're able to trim a little bit easier with a smaller mower. But you'll see when you get to a larger 60-inch deck, you actually get a little bit of overhang. And so that could be the difference in getting into some of those areas, or kind of reaching with the mower deck into those areas you think you had to go in between. And if you're looking at cutting 3, 4, 5 acres, there could be that one spot that gets a little bit taller. Maybe that's an area you could just simply let grow a little bit higher. That could be an area that you have to hit with the trimmer. I think the time saving, that's why you're buying the zero turn mower. The time saving amount from a 60-inch deck to especially a 50-inch deck, that could be the difference in hours of you being on your lawnmower. People, you are in the market of a zero turn mower because you want this to go quicker. Third on the list, I see way too many people buying strictly off of the mower brand rather than their dealer or where they can actually get that piece of equipment. Here's the simple fact about mowers is with every single mower brand, there is a good, better, and best option. No different with what we're looking at with these bad boy mowers that I sell, or I can go and show you the Toro mowers that I sell, and I'm gonna probably do that just to kind of strike this point home. But every single mower brand is going to have a residential, a high-end residential, and then this full-on commercial. And the reality is, Hydro Gear is the person that makes the transmissions in this mower. And then there's tons of different brands out there that use Hydro Gear transmissions. And if they're not using those transmissions, they're probably using Tough Torque or they're using Parker. And a lot of these different mower companies have the same transmission options. A lot of these different mower companies have the same engine options. And it's way more important that you get into the right class of mower, that you get connected with the right dealer than just getting really fixated on having to have a particular brand when you have no dealer support afterwards. And I jump outside to show that point a little bit further. Residential Toro, high-end residential Toro, full-on commercial Toro. I can look at my used lot. I talked about that Cub Cadet. Residential Cub Cadet, high-end residential Cub Cadet, and full-on commercial. So all of them are gonna have these different classes. All of them use similar engine options. There's a Kawasaki, you've got a Kawasaki on that Toro. But the reality is, yes, there are different build structures, different build qualities that go outside of that, but the baseline components they build these around are the transmissions, are the engines. There's usually similar specs when you look at the thickness gauge of deck. There's similar options like getting high-end suspension seats or not. So ultimately, really look at the class of mower that you want, look at the dealer that you'd like to work with, and then go from there. And this next one, point number 4, is probably my biggest pet peeve being the mower sales guy, is people buying off of motor size rather than transmission size. So let's look at a couple different mowers to help you understand exactly what I mean by this. So let's look at this machine right here. This has a Kohler Pro. It's a 24 horsepower engine. Hydro Gear is that company I was talking about earlier. They're the ones that make the transmissions in this. I'm gonna compare this. I'm gonna compare that used Cub Cadet that I've talked about over there as well. So this has a Hydro Gear ZT 2200 transmission. Anytime you're below the 3000 level, you're getting a smaller transmission. You can get a ZT 2800 transmission and it can be serviceable, and I think it's a much better transmission than the ZT 2200 transmission. But the point is, consider this mower, 24 horsepower. You might be thinking, oh, okay, we got all the power, everything I want to do with this machine because it's 24 horsepower, but you're forgetting about the transmission. Then let's go over, let's look at the Cub Cadet. And if we look at this one here, so this one's a Kawasaki, and if I look at this plate right here, this is a 23.5 horsepower. So this is smaller than that one I just looked at over there. I see some people come in here thinking that that's a better machine because it's got more horsepower. Well, if we look underneath right here, here's the Hydro Gear transmissions. Here's one, here's the other. This is a ZT 3400 transmission. Your speed across the ground is the transmission. How it does with thicker grass cutting conditions is the horsepower. Usually on a 60-inch deck, if you are 24 to 30 horsepower, that is suitable to get the job done. But you've got to be in really thick, heavy, lush conditions for that horsepower to matter nearly as much as what you think it does. And if you're putting a bagger or something else like that, you got to kick it up the chute. I think more horsepower is going to make a big difference. But just besides looking at the horsepower number one, transmissions are important. And the bigger you go with transmissions, the faster the machine will move, the more it will last. When you're talking about hilly terrain type properties, the longer it will last if you're gonna run it for 8 hours in a day. But besides just horsepower, if I look at this engine versus the other, I would much rather have this engine right here. This is a fully commercial engine. Let's use Kawasaki as an example. They're gonna have 3 different classes that I can explain as far as engine options, okay? So let's go over and let's look at a Kawasaki and their lower engine offering. This is a Kawasaki FR651V. So R is their residential series. And look at the air canister filter. This is flat across. It has a substantial air filter here, but not nearly as big if I go up one class right now. So if I go over here, this is a Kawasaki FS. So they get different classes to engines, just like there's different classes to lawnmowers, right? So the FS is gonna have a better air filtration system, and everything about this gets a little bit beefier. You're gonna start to see those air canister filters in the tubes protruding more on these larger machines. Here's a brand new engine right here. This is also the FX, and you're gonna notice a really big air canister filter. It's not just the air canister filter, it's everything inside of that that gets a lot better. I would rather have a commercial engine that's actually a little bit smaller horsepower than a residential grade engine that's bigger horsepower. And I can't stress enough the transmission component of that machine. You guys, I said this earlier, you want to cut the grass faster. You want the maneuverability, but you want the speed. That's the very difference between a $4,000 mower and that $12,000 mower. The bigger, better transmission. Yes, you get the commercial grade engines with that, but that's the biggest thing you'll notice when you go from a smaller machine to that bigger machine is it's gonna move way faster. That's because you got a bigger, better transmission. Lastly, number 5, comfort. You need to think about the comfort on your machine. There's a lot of different ways you can get more comfort. We can look at these baseline residential machines and you can look at what the seats look like, right? You're gonna see seats that look more like this in your baseline residential machines. It seems like the Toro has a little bit more plush, a little bit more comfortable seat, but every time you're starting to go up in class, you're gonna notice little things like higher back seats are gonna come with the machine. There's gonna be ventilation that comes with that. And as I keep going up with mower classes, you're gonna get things like armrests. The seat is something you gotta look at first. Depending on your local dealer, you could get a seat upgrade that looks like this on that machine, and it makes a world of difference as far as the comfort you're gonna get by just upgrading your seat. When you have a baseline residential machine, you're gonna see something like this, just a couple of springs. If I start to go up in classes of machines, same sort of thing that you just have springs, but depending on what mower brand you're looking at, as you go up with Toro, they have something like this My Ride suspension. This whole platform is suspended and you have a lot of comfort. We've done a whole video just talking about mower suspension. I would encourage you to check that out. A nice thing that Bad Boy does is they're gonna put rubber bushings on the front. They also do it on the rear of the machine, and you can kind of see when I'm on this that it's gonna take a lot of suspension, a lot more comfort with that machine. So it depends on what you're looking at. Bad Boy makes a Rogue machine that actually has 3-link trailing arms off of the rear, and that's incredibly comfortable. Toro and all their classes of mowers are gonna have that My Ride option. So with that, it's gonna cost you a little bit more money. And when I talk about the suspension on machines, there are many machines that are rigid frame machines. There's nothing you can do except upgrade your seat. Although there are awesome systems like the Toro My Ride system, or you think of brands like Ferris that do this coil-over shock system, and I see tons of different brands doing all these different sorts of things. There are many mowers out there that have a rigid frame system, and I very commonly we'll see options like this, a premium suspension seat. You'll see the best of the best suspension seats have this type of system that you can actually spin this and you can dial this seat to your weight. If you get a seat like this brand new, that's gonna be around $800. Now that's a lot of money. If you think about a mower, you typically are wanting something that can last 10, 20 years, depending on what you're doing. I don't know how many times you cut a year. Maybe it's 30. 30 times 20, close to 600. It might be talking about like $1 or $2 difference every time you cut your grass for comfort. You may think that it doesn't make a really big difference. It's incredible if you sit on one of these seats versus those baseline seats we were talking about. Again, don't just think of price right now, think of long-term cost. This is a machine you're gonna have for a very long time. It makes a huge difference. It might just depend on the terrain at your property, how much the comfort will matter to you. And hey, you've made it this far, I'm gonna give you a bonus one right here. So let's say you come, you check the mowers out, you decide, hey, I wanna buy this Bad Boy Maverick right here. I see so many people skipping the test drive. I mentioned this in a lot of my videos. I'm 6'8" tall. I've got a couple of machines here. I just told you there's no secret mower brand, right? You could buy lots of these different ones and they said, well, Matt, would you pick the Toro? Would you pick the Bad Boy? A lot of these transmissions are gonna be similar. Now there may be some better value in certain classes of mowers, but I think, for example, Toro and Bad Boy, the mowers that I sell right now, whether you get a Magnum or whether you go with their time cutter, you're getting very similar value up front as far as the price point that you're paying. And I tell people, sit on the mower. You may sit on this and it might fit your body better. You might just like how the arm bars are laid out. You may like a feature like the parking brake differences from one mower to another. Get on the mower and actually see if you like it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, a mower's a mower, they're all the same. Well, I just told you, there's a lot of differences in these mowers. There are big differences in the speed, the comfort, everything there in between that I've just talked about. So if you are looking to buy a mower, if you're anywhere in the Midwest region, come see me, okay? Come to Hobby Equipment. We'll get you in a Bad Boy or Toro or something used. But if not, if you're going to your local place, please take into consideration everything that I've just told you. Don't make one of those mistakes that I just mentioned. And until that next video, I'll see you later.